Good evening and welcome to Season 6, Episode 8 of Inside the Rookery. Today, Andy Law and I are joined by Jack Fox, film director and indeed co-director of Chaos Rising, and Graeme McEwan, combat performer and fight choreographer who was the co-creator and producer of the film Chaos Rising, which we are going to be talking about today when we chat about bringing action fantasy to life. Welcome to the stream, guys. It's really great to have you here.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very
problem
much.
at all.
I'm particularly looking forward to this one because if you didn't know out there already, Lindsay and I attended the premiere to good old Chaos Rising and we had an absolute whale of a time. And that's not just because Lindsay was much better at archery than I was.
Yeah, but you were much better at axe throwing than I was. It is a fact.
Totally true.
Yeah, and thanks to Lore Master of Sotek because he was the one that hooked us up with tickets for the premiere. And big shout out to him, who I think features in the film.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we, as always, we've had lots of questions pre-submitted by our patrons on the Discord community. But before I jump into those, would you like to introduce yourself, guys? Anything you'd like to tell us before we get started?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jack Fox. I'm a film director and a visual effects designer. I've been making films since I was about 10 years old. I've done short films and I've done short form comedy, and I've worked on commercials and TV shows and feature films, and recently did the Scottish action fantasy epic Chaos Rising.
And I'm
Link below.
Graeme McEwan. I work more inside of combat performance. I've been working with Combat International for a little over 13 years now. That's tended to be on your bigger budgets for everything from Outlaw King to The Last Duel and Outlander. This was my first time kind of helping bring something to life, and it was a heck of experience.
Yes.
Well, we're really excited to talk to you. And we've got, as I said, lots of questions. But first one, let's just get straight into a question from Lazy Cat. So how did the project start? Where did the idea to do this crazy thing come from?
Well, there's two sides to that. So, Graeme, if you tell your side and then I'll tell our side, and hopefully it makes sense.
Absolutely. So initially, I got a message from one of the other creators and producers, Roy, just being like, hey, we should make this really short, gruesome, violent video. And me and him and Gummy, the other one on our side of the team, got together, came up with this little 5-minute gratuitous violence, no story, really just a bunch of people getting shanked. We're like, oh, this sounds really cool. Gummy knew
it does.
Jack and or Charlie, I can't remember at this point. He just loaned one of them an axe, as these things often involve. And they were like, yeah, this does sound cool, but we're going to add character development, a story, and a plot for some strange reason. And I'll give them, it was probably worth doing.
I'll take it. But no, yeah, it's kind of a funny one. So, kind of connection-wise, the other producer, Gummy, Graham Carlisle, he and I actually went to college together, but we weren't in the same class. He was the year below me. And, you know, we saw each other in the corridors, but we never hung out. And we had some friends in common, and we worked on similar projects. But we never really worked together. And this was, I don't know, 10, 13 years ago or so. And we kind of drifted apart. And then I ran into him at a film event, and he told me that he was involved with Duncarron and Clanranald, which sounded awesome. And I thought, I'm gonna remember that. And several years later, yeah, Charlie wanted an axe for a photo shoot. And I was like, I know a guy that might have some axes lying around. And yeah, so that's how we met Gummy and then Graeme here. And we just met up for a drink and started discussing this idea, which sounded really, really cool. And we just wanted to meet the guys as well and Duncarron and visit the place. We knew of it, but we hadn't actually been there. So it was nice to go along and meet the guys, and just such a great community and really, really passionate movie and game nerds, just like me. So we kind of fit right in there and, yeah, made a film together, and it was a hell of an experience.
When we came to the premiere, such was the volume of film and game nerds there that Andy, you actually met someone, a friend of yours that you hadn't seen for years. We didn't know they would be there, and we just met them there on the day.
It was funny. I mean, for you Warhammer nerds out there, yeah, I met up with Adrian Smith, Warhammer artist extraordinaire from back in the day, who now works both independently and does tons of work for, say, Cool Mini or Not et al. And I hadn't seen Adrian for about 20 years, when we'd both been working for Target Games in Edinburgh, back when we were a good bit younger and less grey. It was an unexpected, happy moment. Yeah, it was good.
Bringing people together, bringing different connections and different creatives together. I mean, that was the whole point of the film, but I'm glad that you guys got to meet up there. And since then, we've been speaking about Adrian a lot. Like, his artwork is just, the more I see of it, it's just incredible. And I just realized that he pretty much designed most of my childhood influential fantasy art. Like, just
Oh yeah, 100%.
He did that. I'm like, oh my god, I had books with his artwork on it. It's crazy. So that's been really, really fun.
So on that note, so Lazy Cat asks, how much did you know about Warhammer, which people may not know, but it provided the inspiration for the film before you got involved in the project? I'm sensing, Jack, from you quite a lot if you grew up on Adrian Smith's artwork.
Not as much as Graeme here. Like, he is the true fan. I kind of experienced it a lot when I was a lot younger. A lot of my friends had Warhammer figurines, and I used to go around theirs a lot and read White Dwarf magazine and just look at all this cool art. Unfortunately, Warhammer sets are very expensive, so I never got any. But I got to play with my friends, and we started playing the video games and the strategy games and things like that. So yeah, I kind of knew a lot about it, drifted away from it, and then suddenly got thrust back into it, and it was like reliving my childhood again. But Graeme, you know.
Yeah, I knew a huge amount going into this. I've probably been playing and collecting Warhammer for the best part of 20 years. Most of the books behind me are at least 60% are Warhammer. Got a shelf of models on me right now. It is an expensive hobby, but I have really poor impulse control. So here I am. The other two kind of guys on my side, Gummy and Roy, they're both also very much long-term players and collectors. So in terms of kind of the lore and the research side of it, that probably fell a little bit more onto us, and we kind of guided Jack and Charlie to an extent. Luckily, researching this is just like any form of historical research. Just read a book, find something you can reference, and you're covered. My first degree was in history, so this was kind of just a continuation of that for me, but in a
perfect,
much more fun and less dry setting.
Oh, totally.
But just with bigger axes, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just bit bigger axes, bigger bits of armor. But
some viewers will know that Andy and I were a team on, well, he was the producer of Wifrip 4th edition, and I did some writing and editing for it. But I also, over the years, have done a lot of research for him on various things. And that's the dream, right? To do research, to be put into something related to Warhammer was always my, I was like, this is so much fun. I can't believe I get to read books and just tell you stuff. I founded books. Anyway.
True fact. I have entire files stored in my PC full of naval facts that Lindsay has mined from me in the past when I was writing, for example, the Imperial First Navy for the Empire in Warhammer. And I knew a bit, and I'd read lots of Hornblower books as a kid as well, but she just provided this shed load of extra stuff, which was super useful. So, yeah. Very much the case. Yeah. I don't read very quickly, unlike Lindsay. I'm a very slow reader, but a fast writer.
That's true.
That's a good skill, though. That's a good skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an odd
we're a good research
flip around.
Team.
Yeah, fantastic team. Really picking up there. Me and Gummy wrote the very first kind of 5-minute short violent draft. And unfortunately, neither me or Gummy are very good at writing. We'd had a couple of beers when we wrote it. No one, including us, could read it.
Including you. That's not a great start.
Yeah, I eventually managed to mine the main facts from it, but yeah.
Was it by any chance written in a pub at the time?
Actually, at Duncarron,
at Duncarron,
get inspired. The little notebook is in. No, it was just written on random pages, back to front, upside down. There was no coherence through how a book should be, linearly read. So that was great.
Actually, on that, because quite a few of our viewers obviously don't come from good old Scotland like us, and they might have absolutely no idea what Duncarron is. Anyone fancy giving a quick? This is Duncarron, and this is why it was so freaking awesome for what we were doing.
Yeah, so Duncarron is a living history village. It's been constructed over the last 20, 30 years by the Clanronald Trust for Scotland, which is an education-based children's charity out of the heart of Scotland. It's been used as a film set multiple times over that. Parts of it have been either donated from films, such as the battering ram from Robin Hood or the trebuchet from Outlaw King, the trebuchet that you do see in the film, because, you know, Bretonians gotta be if you're inspired by Bretonians, you gotta be having weapons. A trebuchet. Recently, since we wrapped on filming, Outlander's been up, and they have added a few more bits. You guys will have seen it. To the fort itself, a big bastion for the cannons and things. So yeah, it's a kind of ongoing film set and living history village.
Unfortunately, that was after we filmed our film, of course. Then they come in and renovate the place and put all this new cool stuff in. And then we came in and looked at it and we're like, oh God, we wish we had that in the film. Oh well. But
for the next one,
we did well with what we had available, which was an awesome fort. But yeah, it would have been cool to have those battlements and stuff.
Lindsay, you're muted.
Thanks. Seago had asked a question about that. Did you build specific sets for the film? What inspiration did you draw on? Or was it Duncarron itself that provided the inspiration?
It was entirely Duncarron that provided the inspiration. We shot almost exclusively in Duncarron. There was a couple of sequences in the film that actually have full background replacement, 3D background replacement, and we filmed them in the Scottish borders, very close to where I actually grew up. But everything else was shot in and around Duncarron. So yeah, we had a lot of really great resources to use there. Didn't have to build any sets, which is great.
Apart from the longship scenes, which were filmed in Lake Windermere.
Oh yes, the longship.
Almost a lot more in Lake Windermere than we would have wanted.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about
Got
the longship. That was pretty grim, right?
Got a little bit sinky, I guess would be the technical term for that one. Unfortunately, the ship had, due to COVID, not been in the water for a couple of years. If anyone doesn't know, a wooden ship, when it's in the water, the wood expands and it stays waterproof or watertight. Fantastic. Having not been in the water for a couple of years, the wood was quite dry and therefore, not what you wanted. And so, over the course of the day, with multiple various types of pumps, we maybe got half an hour, 40 minutes out. And the lake wardens, who were fantastic, put in a second safety boat and everything for us, come up and they're like, if you head back now, you might make it.
Words of encouragement. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get as much time as we wanted, but we got some good footage there. I mean, it's a very short sequence of the film, and it's really just to establish the Marauders arriving. So we got some really good footage, and then that blended with CGI really made the scene come together. But yes, it was a bit touch and go there for a minute with that boat, but thankfully nobody fell overboard. Everyone was fine, so all good.
So Roderick asks, what's the biggest challenge in trying to translate the multimedia hyper-reality of a setting like Warhammer to a live-action film?
I mean, I think we were drawing inspiration from all different types of fantasy and tabletop gaming and things like that. So it was really a case of listening to the fans of our campaign and the people that were watching our videos and trying to figure out what it is that they would like to see and what would resonate with them, as well as, making sense in the context of an original film. So yeah, it was just finding a balance between that. And obviously there's a lot of aesthetics and stuff that are coming from loads of different sources in the armor and the weapons and history as well. So we were kind of just, like I say, finding a balance between that, trying to make it look as cool as possible, but also having little things in there that fans would be able to recognize and go, I know what that is. I know what that is. So that, and I think that kind of came across when we watched the live stream when we launched the film. There was a lot of people tuned in to watch it, and they were all typing in the chat, and the moments that we wanted them to go, oh, that's, that, they did. And, that was a great thing to experience. So that means that we hopefully succeeded in that regard.
We were quite Andy is notoriously noisy at cinemas. It just is a thing that happens. But we were quite noisy at the premiere when we saw some things that we were quite excited about. Particularly me and the what was it called? The monster, the rat monster.
Creature.
The creature.
The creature.
Miscellaneous creature.
The creature.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
The
Well,
creature thing.
thankfully, I think everyone else in the place was quite vocal about that as well. So it wasn't just you standing out; everyone was. So that's what we wanted. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, big question for those of us out here who might want to make our own Chaos Rising type film. How did you fund the project?
So that was very much mainly done through a Kickstarter. A number of years ago now, we filmed a pitch video, which if you go into our YouTube channel, you can see that along with everything else. That was pretty well received. We raised, I want to say, around £33,000 on Kickstarter. Obviously, once they take their fees and everything like that, and then you send out rewards. That goes down a good way. We got very, very lucky that a good friend of ours runs a mead company in York called ItR Mead. Anyone hasn't, or if anyone likes mead and hasn't heard of them, give it a try. It's fantastic, and he did a couple.
Absolutely fantastic. I can.
If you guys
quite a lot.
Yeah, so you guys had a little mead when you were coming in at the premiere. He was our provider.
We did, and it was, I have to say, genuinely amazing mead. Like, I've had quite a lot of mead in my time, and it was excellent. So yeah, we'll get that link and we'll pop that. If we can't get it for the live one, we'll pop it in the comments.
So he did a couple limited edition release runs for us and gave us the profits off that to kind of help bring things up. A little bit of merch sale, which we do still have, to my knowledge, on sale on the website if anyone's interested. But a huge part of this film, like staggeringly huge part of this film, was done on favors and goodwill.
Yeah.
The shadow budget on this is
quite big.
Yeah, it's a thing. So we very much relied on the connections and the relationships that we built up over the course of all of our careers, whether that be over the last 10, 20 years, whatever, to kind of bring all this together. So yeah, huge amount of goodwill and favors. We could not have done this without a huge amount of support and that amazing network we had behind us.
Like we were able to just call on so many different. We pulled in every single favor imaginable to do it, but in terms of like the funding, it's very difficult to get a film like this funded in Scotland, especially like through official channels. And this was our first time doing a crowdfund, and it totally paid off. So yeah, I absolutely recommend crowdfunding if you want to start a project. But in terms of filmmaking, it was the way to go, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of answered Kilishandra's question. How did you manage on such a small budget? And that is, you have a lot of friends and a lot of people with a lot of love for Chaos Rising.
Had a lot of friends. Some of them don't really answer the messages anymore. Oh, it's them again. Nope.
Well, they certainly weren't until the film was released, and then suddenly
they'll come back.
It was a case of calling in every favors, and just the post-production team was incredibly small. So like the thing that took the longest amount of time was post-production. I think we spent maybe a good part of 2 years just in post.
Oh gosh.
And it was literally, I think we had maybe a 5-6 man team, and that included myself and Charlie Parker, the co-director. I did all the VFX, and I think I put in about 2,000 hours of VFX work. I logged it, and I probably shouldn't have, because it just made me sad. But it was a lot of work, and obviously everyone that worked, like the edit and our sound designers, very small teams, and they just did all that work, and because they wanted to make a cool film. And that was the main drive of this whole project. I think, especially from the crowdfund, yes, we did raise money. It wasn't a lot of money, but I think the thing that motivated us the most was just the interest and the reaction from the fans, and all these people were donating to this project because they wanted to see it happen. And that, I think, just everyone was on the same page and was like, we're totally motivated. We need to make this film and put everything into it. And that kept us going, just knowing that the audience was there, and they loved what we were making. So
And Kilishandra has another. Perhaps you've covered some of it in the waters of Lake Windermere, but how many cold, dark, freezing nights were involved?
Windermere was probably the nicest shoot. That was actually a day shoot.
Windermere was during.
Yeah,
that was a day
pleasant,
shoot. And it was sunny.
actually. Nights were horrendous. I was one at points. I did many different things on camera, but at points I was one of the marauders that went topless. Which doing October through to kind of January till 4 or 5, sometimes later in the morning in winter in Scotland. Don't recommend if anyone was considering it as a new vacation, a new hobby. Don't just skip that one. Yeah. It was cool, but the team, a lot of us knew each other before it, and those that didn't all became quite close during it. It was definitely one of those cases where you all kind of helped each other through it, because it was rough. The only time I was warm was when I was dressed as a knight, as Sir Tristan, the musician. But the downside to that was none of the knights could see. Yeah, I'm great at music.
It sounded great when you smashed over that guy's head.
Yeah, that's how you do music. I can't eat that.
That's how you do character, if anything. That's how you do.
But yeah, the downside when you were the knights, you're all in the big full face helmets. You can't see a thing, and it's pitch black. And when your vision is that, and there's no light, so yeah, many cold, freezing nights. And that was from our side. The guys behind the camera were equally sodden, and trying the Herculean task of keeping equipment dry.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Was just trying to keep everything dry. We got kind of lucky. I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 of the shoot nights where there was rain or heavy rain, and one of the days it stands out to me was, I think it was about maybe halfway through the shoot, and we had a scene out in the woods, and it was just torrential rain. It was horrible, and it was, I think we're about 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe even later than that. And it was like, we need to just stop because this is dire. We cannot continue this. So we had to just call it that. Let's just go home, get warm, and we'll come back at it tomorrow. And out in the freezing cold and pitch dark, but at least it wasn't raining.
Brought up a question there from Callum, which I think we've already loosely answered, although he did add a little extra, that park in Edinburgh at night, which we definitely didn't cover. But I think the only other set that you said was down in Lake Windermere?
Yeah, so there was one night where we shot some pickups in Edinburgh. That was some of when the Chaos Chief is trying to rally his men, and he's just ripped out Mini Wargaming Dave's throat. Some of the reaction shots, I think, was that scene? Anyway, were filmed in Edinburgh as a pickup.
It was mostly reaction shots of the Marauders and things. There was, do you know what the funny thing is? This production, the further into the edit we got, we realized there was like a couple of clips and cutaways and things like that, inserts we needed that we didn't have. So a lot of it at the end of the production was literally me and Charlie out in the woods behind our flat with like various bits of costume. I'll be wearing like a glove, and it would be a close up of my hand, but it's actually another character's hand and stuff. So a lot of it, there was a lot of pickups like that. But thankfully, we could just nip out the back and film it and then throw it in the edit. There's not some massive, complicated pipeline there. So that was the luxury of low budget filmmaking.
And did you start the funding before COVID? Like, how long did it take to make?
No, this was all after the big lockdown, from what I remember.
Yeah.
No, I remember. I think me and Roy and Gummy had the very first chat towards the end of the first lockdown, but this all kind of came off the other side of that. I think it's a very long time ago now.
That is a long time ago. So that's like 2020.
21? I don't know.
2021, and then I think we went into production it must have been the very end of 2021. And that's when we shot it. We shot it in winter. So yeah, I think it was
winter.
I think do you know what? It's been such
the first shoot date was the 1st of October 2021.
Yes.
I can say it with confidence. It was my birthday. And I was like, yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Now
So
I think
your
about it,
gob off
wait,
and
I know-
freeze.
Oh, he wouldn't have it any other way. He loves it.
So
do.
Seagoat has asked, they say the devil's in the detail. Are there any specific Warhammer nuggets that you've included that make this particularly a Warhammer-inspired film? I mean, Lore Master of Sotek is one of them.
And many
Yes,
wargaming
he
people. What
is-
did
he is
people
one of
need?
Yeah.
Definitely the some of the Kickstarter contributors that were lucky enough to come over and be in the film themselves, including Sotek, and they did a great job on it, and their fan base are coming along and watching the film and stuff like that. So that was good. But other than that, it was really just, like I said before, trying to find things that resonate with the fans, and little, like, we're taking influences from Adrian's art and things like that. So yeah, little bits like that here and there, and obviously people are commenting in the comments of the YouTube video, pointing things out. So that's been really great to see.
Yeah, a huge amount of it was obviously the visual aesthetic.
Definitely.
It was inspired by, so obviously we were being quite careful to not do too much. So a lot of inspiration would also be stuff that you could draw a historical parallel from, which the Bretons made quite easy. And mental Viking type marauders, they exist in so many forms of media. So again, a bit of the visual inspiration, the main characters being knights out on a quest, and kind of some of the stuff that went around with that. And like little things that we're kind of hoping folk would pick up on. If you go back and you watch it again, when the beacon scene, when they're getting attacked there, they're rolling some dice, and that comes up as 13 on the dice, which for anyone that used to play back in the day was a little nod to the dreaded 13, which foreshadows possibly some unrelated creatures turning up later on, which were unrelated.
I think just on the same question, I think that one of the main things that fans are going to pick up on is really how we structured the characters, and also a lot of the fight scenes as well was meant to be kind of resonate with the fans of tabletop gaming and things like that. Like I mentioned before, the Loot Knight, his entire character is he has a loot. He has knight's armor, he has a loot, and he smashes over some guy's head. And that's, when it comes to tabletop games and stuff, a lot of the time it's, you're going with what your figurine is wearing and what kind of weapon he has. So we really thought about that. And then obviously working in historical tactics and stuff, Graeme and Gummy were kind of really clear with what they wanted in terms of fight scenes and the shield wall and all these kind of historical tactic based attacks. So
so like things like when they're just before they fire the trebuchet, the marauders all turn up in the hill holding a couple of torches each, just to impression of numbers. That was a bit of inspiration from the 13th Warrior. That's exactly what was going through our head when we were pitching that idea to the guys, and that's what covers the marauders sneaking in and opening the gate. Because one thing annoys me in films anyway, when things are just kind of dumb. Like, why are they sneaking in? Why is no one paying attention? All right, you're looking over it. So, and then got to pull an inspiration from another really cool film about Vikings, which was perfectly fitting.
It's a great movie. I love that movie.
Absolutely
Me too.
It's a great movie. I think you noticed, you mentioned 13th Warrior to me, Andy, and when
I
we
did.
were at the premiere. You did, yeah. You know your references.
That.
I did not.
Movie
You did.
nerds.
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
So Kilishandra asks, what was your favorite sequence or scene in general? We can answer too, but we'll let you go first.
Cool. I think for me, this is a total director answer here, but I really enjoyed the kind of one-on-one between Florian and the Baron. It's towards the end of the movie, and it's just like a moment where they kind of confront each other, or Florian confronts the Baron, and they have a moment there, and it kind of reveals a little bit more of the backstory. And I just thought it was great. It might have been because it was one of the easier shoot days. It was literally just minimal cast and crew in a nice indoor environment. But no, I remember cutting that scene together, and it was like, this is a good scene. So I like that. As much as I like the fighting and all the effects stuff that's in the film, I think that might be my favourite one.
I mean, I'm going to not answer with my death scene because I obviously really enjoyed that in a weird way.
No spoilers.
You die?
Everyone's died.
What?
Everyone's dead.
I mean, if you've ever had a conversation with me in filming, of course I die. It's like all I do. I really liked the kind of last clash of it with the shield wall, the drive up, and then kind of Bertrand's fight and death. He's cheeky on the way down, and the shield wall and the push, and finally Florian coming out to try and save his pal. I thought, like, obviously fantastic combat, like all looked really, really cool. The shield wall looked absolutely fantastic on screen, but that nice kind of like bit of emotion as he's riding out trying to save his last dude. I just thought that whole scene just came together beautifully.
Yeah, that was a good scene. That was good. That was a reshoot. We went back and we picked that up. I think there was some stuff that we'd missed, and we decided to go back, and I'm glad we did because everyone just put in their all in that scene, and it turned out absolutely fantastic. So initially,
we hadn't done the whole kind of shield wall forming, the down of the shields. We had been like, "Oh, guys, trust us, it'll look really cool." And Jack and Charlie, we don't have time, which is fair enough. We absolutely did not have time. But when we had the reshoots, we're like, "No, trust us, this is going to look fucking dope." And yeah, it absolutely looked fantastic.
Yeah,
I liked the flashback. One, because I like the aesthetic. I think you captured. I mean, it's not just Warhammer inspired, as you say. It's lots of different, like barding on horses. But for anyone who had that army with horses with barding on, it's just a really, really nice moment. But the reason I personally liked it is because I'm a big fan of all of my antagonists having like proper stories and having lives and having like they're real. And I think some films do them a disservice because that doesn't come across. And in that flashback, no spoilers, but it really did come across. I really liked it.
That is one of the things we very much went for, was that our good guys aren't that great, and our bad guys, our bad guys are pretty fucking terrible. But their motivations aren't necessarily bad. They are still terrible people. Obviously, they're the bad guys, but they're not necessarily motivated purely out of evil.
Exactly. Yeah, we wanted to give them something there, and also like not to be too sympathetic, but just to a sympathetic villain is usually better than one that the audience can't somewhat relate to. But no, that sequence actually has one of my favorite shots in it, where I don't want to say it because it's spoilers, but it's a particular wide shot of both the characters in that flashback sequence. That's my favorite shot in the whole film. I think it looks like a Renaissance painting. That was down to the DOP on the day just did an absolutely fantastic job. So great sequence, and it was difficult trying to figure out how to piece it into the plot without revealing too much, and then trying to withhold a little bit so the audience are guessing, and it's also left a little bit ambiguous towards the end, which is good. We've got a lot of people discussing it in the comments, and we like that.
Also, massive props to Jack for that, because he completely built that landscape. That was
well done.
On top of a hill in the Borders, as Jack mentioned earlier. And the first time we saw that, we were like absolutely lost our shit.
That's what you want when you're doing VFX and you work on it so hard, and then you show the rest of your team, and they're like, "Wow!" That was one of the first things that I showed the guys, and that also motivated everyone to like, "Right, let's get this film done." But that was entirely CGI backgrounds done in Unreal Engine. Thankfully, right when we went to post-production, Unreal launched Unreal Engine 5, and I was like a kid in a playground there. I just managed to utilize that and build that environment.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. Really, really good.
It was. Lindsay and I discussed that one a good bit afterwards, because it stood out in stark contrast with many of the other darker, more moody scenes, and the blood everywhere. And then comparing that with the almost ephemeral nature of that particular memory and how it was played out, and the thundering of those hooves. It was really affecting because of the contrast, and it would have been perhaps significantly less so if there hadn't been so much of a contrast between the two of them. Good stuff.
And we met. Did we meet that horse? Was that the particular horse we met in the premiere? I'm a bit obsessed with that horse.
No,
it was.
Before the premiere, that horse Bella, who is absolutely
Mhm.
fantastic, she retired.
Yeah,
No,
he
we
retired.
definitely didn't. It wasn't even Roy. So in that scene, the third kind of guy from my side of it, Roy, he's our resident horse master. So he did all the Florian mounted scenes. And yes, Bella has since retired. Roy and Bella spent many years on the joust circuit. But he's had to retire. She's off to greener pastures and a nice easy life now. No more having to lug his armored ass across the field.
She's out of filmmaking. She ended on a high, if anything. I'll say that.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she was excellent. There's lots of what's in the. I'm looking in the chat, right? So I love the creature. Who put that together? I'll take that comment off.
So the creature was a combination of practical puppetry and CGI. And we were lucky enough that at the very start of production, we were looking around for an artist that could do creature effects, practical creature effects. And we found one on Facebook. I think it was on one of the Facebook film groups, Emma Park. And she just graduated from art school, looking for projects. And we were like, whoop, right in there. Told her about the project. She absolutely loved it. And she was, I think after our first meeting, within a couple of hours, she was sending us images of she'd already done sculpts. She'd already gone home, grabbed some clay and started to sculpt stuff. So she was like super inspired. And we were like, we want puppets. I said, have you ever seen The Dark Crystal? Have you ever seen Jim Henson? I'm like, I want to do it like that. I want to have some sort of puppet and I want to give it like some CGI tongue and CGI kind of features. And she just got it immediately. And she did a fantastic job. She did the creature, and she did the troll head, and then she did a bunch of limbs and severed feet and fingers and hands and blood and stuff like that. So she did a great job. And I'm going to be doing like a behind the scenes, a really in-depth behind the scenes of how we merged the practical and the CGI. But we wanted to do it sparingly and try and capture old school practical effects. That was like our big thing on this film, was to try and incorporate that. Of course, having armor and weapons and physical bodies on set, it was a big deal for us. So she did a fantastic job.
She was great. And again, when we were out at Duncarron, we met her and she was doing the makeup for us because we all got like Marauder makeup. And I didn't find out till much later on in the day that she had made the creature and done some of the effects. And I just thought that was like such a lovely it just showed the spirit and the community that you had built, that like someone who was doing stuff was just like, yeah, I'll do the face painting. It was really, really nice. So we had a good chat afterwards about the creature.
Yeah, she's lovely and super passionate and modest as well. But I mean that just kind of sums up this production. It was a lot of people doing multiple roles, and it was a community project. So like a lot of people were like, oh, I can help out here, or you need some painting done there or something. So yeah, a lot of people pulling their weight and just doing a great job overall.
Yeah, it definitely came across. Both in the film and just in the community that we met when we were there. It was an amazing day. We had such a great time, didn't we, Andy?
Yeah, everyone was so happy. That was for me the abiding memory of it all. I've turned up for lots of creative stuff, people getting together who have built something creatively, and they're all excited because they're coming close to a release. But this one didn't just have that, yay, we're finally getting out there. There was a strong sense of this is our thing, and how happy everyone was to actually be finally presenting it. And it was nice to just be a part of that, even if to a small degree. It was a very nice day.
We're very glad to hear that.
Thank you. That means a lot to us. Like we really wanted to have it at Duncarron instead of just, we could have gone down the route of just having it at a local cinema or something like that. And it was like, nah, we want people to feel the experience. And when we turned up to the premiere and we had the braziers lit and I could smell the fire and the smoke, and it was like, I feel like I'm back on set again. I feel like I'm in Chaos Rising. So that was a great experience. And yeah, it was the end of 3 years worth of really hard work and everyone getting to see the end product. Very good feeling.
Yeah.
It showed. It did show. There's a No Capes asks, the scene between the Marauder and the night getting lifted gave me the mountain from Game of Thrones I'm so bad with acronyms. I know what that acronym is. I know, like I knew what they were referencing, and I still mess it up. How was that pulled off?
That was like super simple, actually. We just so that was John Williams was playing. I think that's the scene they're referring to when
it's
lifted
that
up. Like,
news getting
I
where's
think we
your
literally just put like wooden struts under his armpits, and then two guys on either side just lifted him up, just shoulder pressed him up, and then he was up, and then we shot the feet, and then movie magic from the other angle, just had them up in the air like that. But yeah, we definitely went for that overpowering, giant versus the kind of smaller knight, but with a full armor. Definitely inspired by things like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Certainly helps when the people playing your marauders are really very tall.
Actual giant.
The
really tall.
Scavald, played by Finn Allen, who's the chief's son in it, and in real life, he's was it 7'2"? He clocks in at just unnecessarily tall. If we're being honest here,
there's a small personal memory on this one. I hadn't seen Finn since he was a baby. Because I used to see Finn when he used to go up and down the Royal Mile with his mum and his dad when they were out there with Clan Ronald playing the drums and at the festival. And one of our closest friends was part of the band. And so I'd see the baby frequently. And this is Finn, gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. And then this is Finn! Oh my goodness! And for me, it was a real, oh my. Well, you're certainly taking on some of your dad's height. Holy crap!
To be honest, it made us feel really quite old.
Finn is the only person I've ever been chokeslammed on a set by that gave you enough time in the air to regret your decision.
Oh no!
Like, why did I do this?
That's so funny.
He's a big boy, but he was fantastic as well on set and just nailed the performance and really, chewed the scenery as Scavald. And I got to have a good fight scene with him because I don't know if you noticed, but I also played the blacksmith in the film, and I have a brief fight, and I'm sick all over his shoes.
Nice.
That wasn't in the script. Jack just wasn't feeling very well that night.
I was just had enough of filming that day.
That's it. That's how Jack and Charlie told us that we were done for the night. One of them would just be sick randomly. All right, home time. That's a wrap.
So Seagoat says, can Chaos Rising be described as the Scottish play?
Are they referencing Macbeth there?
They're referencing Macbeth, yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, well, you know what? Maybe. I mean, it's certainly the Michael Fassbender Macbeth film. There's a lot of imagery in that definitely inspired the film. But outside that, I don't know. I've never actually made the connection. I'm gonna have to go back through and think about that.
Yeah.
It's never occurred to us to consider. I guess.
Yeah, it's not the Northman. The Northman is absolutely Macbeth. But I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
I haven't seen the Northman yet. I really need to watch it. Like,
it's good.
It's on my list. Yeah. I don't know why we haven't watched. Have you watched it, Andy?
No, I haven't. I kept on meaning to. But,
Anyway, Seago asks, fight scenes, special effects, props, how much training or resources did you have to hand and how realistic did it turn out? I mean, Duncaran and the group, I can't remember their name, you're going to tell me in a minute, Graeme, are like legends in their field, so, right?
I'll take the fight scenes part and then so Combat International has been operating for over 20 years. I've been a part of it for 13 years. Graeme and Roy Roy's longer than me. Gummy's coming up about 10 years. So we had a lot of experienced fighters on this, and we have worked very much at the top end of doing this job in the film industry. So in that regard, huge amounts of training, which is good because we didn't have a lot of rehearsal times on this. And by a lot of rehearsal time, I mean next to none. A couple of the bigger fight sequences we did have a bit, but most of it, unfortunately, just with a horrible kind of rapidness of it, and the fact we weren't paying anyone to ask for even more of their time, we're having to kind of do it on the cuff. But luckily, having that experience meant that we could do that, and it still came off. I think it came off looking really good in the fight scenes. Feel free to disagree, but if you do disagree, do it quietly.
Yeah, thankfully the guys had like a lot of the training and resources and all these donations from the other productions they've worked on that we fully utilized. And then we got some custom props made, some custom armor, and obviously the creature effects. But yeah, the majority of it was things that had been donated to Clan Ranald and Duncarron. And yeah, it was great seeing everything on set. We turn up and everyone would be in costume and just ready to go. And it was like, whoa, all right, I'm in the medieval times. That's fun.
Mm-hmm. One of Warren Colonel says,
apart from the stuff that we had custom made for it, which wasn't very much at all, just some of
the yeah, that's easily done.
Yes,
yeah, that's the dream.
Yes.
Sorry, apart from the stuff we made. We're lagging. We're right lagging.
I have a
apart from the stuff we had made.
Sorry, yeah, you did lag there a bit. Yeah, I was going to ask. The very first scene, is significantly more populated than some other parts. Obviously, when you're actually getting the attack on and people have fled. But how much went into that first scene? Because it's really quite a significant one, where an awful lot is happening and almost a single shot as it's weaving its way through the camp. So, did that take a lot of preparation, or was that one that fell into place on the day?
That took a lot of preparation. I mean, right at the very start of the kind of conceptual process, we wanted to open this film with like a big opener like that, and just to show the scale of the production, show the scale of the environment and the party and things like that. And I knew immediately I wanted this big tracking shot and moving through, and we see all the different characters, and it feels like it's a living party, a living place. And then on the day, yeah, I think that was one of the busiest days. I can't remember exactly how many people were on set, but I think it was probably over 150. It was quite a lot of people.
That's a lot.
And I mean, that's including crew as well. But yeah, that was a great day. And that day I was in costume. So I got to direct for the first half and, get everyone ready and in place. And then I ran off, got in costume, and then got to come back and be in the environment as a character. So that was fun.
Unfortunately, we've just lost Graeme, but
I'm sure he'll come back in a moment.
Yeah, we've been having connectivity issues all the way through. So yeah, how was costume and props handled? As in, how was it commissioned? So a lot of it presumably was donated or people already had, but the stuff that wasn't.
Yeah. So the stuff that wasn't, it was mostly the kind of specialized armor parts. So most of Ulfgar's armor, the big helmet and weapons, like the very oversized props, we all got custom made. And I'm trying to think, a lot of the weapons the Marauders were using were the ones donated. Graeme was actually in charge of most of that side of it, like the costume and the weapons, so he knows more than me. But I'm just saying, Graeme, some of the custom props were pretty much just the oversized weapons and armor.
Okay, we're not hearing you there, so we appear to have some sort of sound issue.
Yeah, outside of a few of the kind of larger chaos pieces, almost. Hello?
He's probably got connection issues. But yeah,
we heard you for a bit there.
Yeah, because some of the larger helmets were like Kickstarter awards, I think.
Yeah, and they got snapped up pretty quickly. In fact, there was a bunch of the props got bought by one of our donators who was actually in the film as well, who clearly enjoyed his style so much that he wanted some souvenirs and bought up a couple of the helmets. But were really cool and oversized. Obviously, that was one of the big parts of it.
Sorry about that. Now on my phone, I think I'm working now.
Oh, you are indeed. That's super clear.
Much better.
Perfect.
Much better.
I don't know what.
Yeah, we were just saying chaos curse on the internet connections or the weather. Maybe we're going to blame the weather. We agreed before the show that we would blame the weather, and we're still going to blame the weather.
Scotland.
So yeah, to kind of quickly jump in where I was last in it. I don't know if Jack's covered too much more, but apart from a few of the custom made pieces, basically everything we used and wore was things from other film sets that we've worked on over the last however long. That was a resource that definitely definitely kind of allowed us to bring this all together, because that was a lot of kit that we had available.
For me, the ones that stood out most were the obviously and very clear helmet styles that were in place on the Marauders. And we almost at one point thought we could pick up one of those because we stream a Warhammer game, and that'd be quite nice. But then we had a look at the boxes that we have behind us, and we're like, yeah, no. None of those helmets are going to fit into one of those IKEA-shaped boxes ever, because they were like, "Whoa!" with the big horns, and I was like, "That's a shame." It would be a super cool prop to have in the background while simultaneously not fitting.
Yeah, we've got a load of Warhammer stuff: the Battle of Blackfire Pass, Our Land in the Time of Sigmar, various special editions, and we thought, oh, it would be really nice to have a helmet. But totally. No.
Yeah, it wasn't going to fit.
Not even with the right application of force.
No. So are the Marauders planned to meet some other spooky creatures? Is there a sequel? Is that the question?
The plan is, I mean, this was meant to be, or is the first part in a 3-part story. We kind of put everything that we had into this one. So if we do want to make more, it's going to be a case of bigger audience, and we need the money to be able to make it, because yes, it all comes down to the money. So hopefully if we are able to do that, then yeah, we're totally wanting to continue this story, because there's ideas that we have for fight scenes and characterization, and obviously more creatures, absolutely, that we want to put in there, and we have the audience and the fans there asking for it. So yes, please, if it's possible, we totally want to do it.
We do hear of the story as well. Like, it is kind of, if someone turns up and goes, "Here's a whole shed load of money,"
then yes.
Do feel free to visit us too, because we do love sheds and money. On that as well, let me just say that they do have a Patreon that they've just opened up over on the Chaos Rising official Patreon bit. There are links there and links over in the comments. Do go take a check. It has literally just started, and that'll be one way of saying, yeah, go on, do more. Every single last little bit helps, as you know. For those of us who also run patrons, we know that even one person can make an enormous difference.
Absolutely. And we're continuing to make additional content for the YouTube channel. We've got like a bunch of behind the scenes and in-depth stuff there, as well as our Marauder Mike videos that we are our big fan favorite. We love making those. We're going to continue doing them. And we kind of want to explore some of the backstories and maybe some short films or maybe animations. So yeah, we do have a plan for that. So consider going to the Patreon, and then keep following the channel, and hopefully we'll get to make episode 2.
Episode 2.
There is a important question from Long Shadow. Before I watch the film, I have to ask: is there a small but vicious dog? That you're probably bewildered by that question.
I don't think there's any dogs in it.
So, just so you understand, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which is the very first edition of it, set up a whole host of standard norms that Warhammer picked up and used across the battle game, across the novels. But one thing that's always stood as almost an icon for the roleplay game side of it is the one trapping for a rat catcher, which is the small but vicious dog, basically a terrier. And it has stood throughout all of the editions of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and it stood there as that lovely little trapping small but vicious dog, until eventually the 4th edition came out with a higher tier trapping large and vicious dog. Good times. But yeah, for the Warhammer Fantasy role players out there, that's one of those details that just makes it feel like it's Warhammer in a way that some others don't.
Dog.
Exactly.
Well, maybe we can rewrite a couple of scenes and maybe have a face-off there.
It's often shortened to the SBVD. Just for those who know. Iconic.
The conditions of filming were horrendous, and we love dogs. We wouldn't do that.
I know, right? I know.
Dogs, no. Dogs deserve better than those film conditions.
I was just
it really
thinking
that cool?
As it was being asked, that yeah, you can tell. Like it even looks cold. It's like not like when you're watching it, you're like, oh fuck, that looks really, really cold. But in a good way.
For the watcher.
For the watcher, yeah. So Lazy Cat asks, final question, and then we'll make sure we've gone around all the links again. So how had your previous work really prepared you for the grim and perilous world you were depicting in Chaos Rising?
For Charlie and I, and the kind of film production side, we had done a lot of kind of high concept short films based on video games and other kind of things like that. So we had experience in that area, but not with anything medieval and not with anything, really that side of fantasy. So that was a big challenge for us, but we were able to take things that we'd learned on these other films and, applying to this, particularly for me, was the horror side. I do a lot of like short horror films. It's my favorite genre, and I wanted to put as much of that into Chaos Rising as possible, which is why there's a few moments in there that are quite scary and quite creepy. And I think, that was something that I was able to bring from the horror film side.
Oh, I've actually just had another question in the comments, which do you plan, No Capes asked, should episode 2 get worked on, will wizards and witches make a potential appearance? I wondered that too. We talked about that on the day, about sorceresses, maybe a wizard.
Sorceresses in particular was a part of our discussion,
That
because
was
inevitably,
mine.
whenever we watch a thing, Lindsay's first comment will be, female representation.
I need more.
So we're like, let's
Show me
discuss
the
that one
sorceress.
out.
I love witches and witchcraft and stuff like that, so I think it's something I would like to explore. But McEwan was, I think we initially were planning on doing something with magic, but we ended up kind of scrapping that, didn't we?
Well, the Chaos guys, obviously, the blood gods that they quite like, isn't notorious
Possibly.
for the love of witchcraft and such nonsense. And the Bretonians weren't the Bretons weren't exactly pious enough to have been noticed by anyone that was capable of casting magic. Anyone, certainly. But what we'd see in episode 2, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I've got my fingers crossed for episode 2 for the Bretons to become a little bit more, get a little bit further on their quest, perhaps.
Be less, yeah.
Be less shit. Well.
Poor Bretons.
And that pretty much brings us to the end of our hour. So there's the Patreon again, just down at the bottom, and it's in the comments. That's the official website, and that is the YouTube channel. So please do go and check it.
That's the movie itself, actually.
Is that the movie itself?
That's directly through to the movie itself. I'll pop the YouTube channel up as well. This is a comment there. And if you haven't gone and watched it yet already, go bloody watch it, because it's an enormous amount of fun. And that's what we're all here for, enjoying ourselves, and definitely worth your time. We had a load of fun when we were there. Good times. Although she was better at archery than I was.
But no, thank you very much for having us. And everyone just go and check out the film. And if you like this kind of thing, then you'll probably really, really enjoy it.
You absolutely will. Thank you so much, Jack. Thanks, Graeme, for coming to chat to us. Next, we are away for a Rookery Summit for a few days, and we will be back next Saturday for another episode of Inside the Rookery. So please do join us then. Until then, all that remains for me to say is good night and caw-caw. See you soon.